The Lansing Charter Commission to order. This is our March 18th, 2025 meeting. I'd like to welcome a whole lot of people here tonight. Ms. Clerk, I'd ask you to call the roll.
Okay, Commissioner Adam Simon,
Here.
Commissioner Anderson, Commissioner Bauer,
Here.
Commissioner Boyd, Commissioner Dowd, Commissioner Jeffries,
Here.
Commissioner Lopez, Commissioner Cooey, Commissioner Washington. There are 7 members present, a quorum. Commissioners Anderson and Cooey are not present.
Thank you. This would be a time for a motion to adopt the agenda. It's been moved and supported. Are there any changes or additions, deletions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The agenda is adopted. Now would be a motion for approval of our minutes for the March 4th, 2025 meeting.
So
Been
moved.
Moved and supported. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The minutes are approved. Now's the time for public comment. Mr. Clerk?
Okay, we do have a number of people. You have up to 3 minutes to address the commission. First, we have Derek Quinney, followed by Jan Simpson.
Good evening. Derek Quinney, lifelong resident here in the city of Lansing, and I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the Board of Water and Light, which has been a fixture in this community my entire life. I recall the days when, as a youth, the payment center was on the corner of Ottawa there, and my mother used to, because the traffic was so crazy, she'd send me inside to make the payment, and then we'd also go and make the bulb exchange as well. Remember when they had the bulb exchange downtown or whatever those years ago? Come on, y'all remember the bulb exchange. All right, now don't be But it's those type of things, as well as I had the opportunity to have a summer job there as well. As an elected official, had the opportunity to work with the commissioners on the board and others as well. And I certainly have learned a lot about the process and how all of that works and the significance of that role that a public utility plays in here in our city. I also appreciate the programs that Board WDL has offered when it comes to assistance with individuals who are having hardships, making payments on their bills and utilities and such. I appreciate that about them, and I support them in that regard as well. And also the presence in the community. There's hardly a time that I see them at some public event or something that's going on in the public where BWL doesn't have a presence there as well. And finally, you know, Dick Pepley and his team, I can certainly appreciate Dick and the fact that he's the kind of individual that came up through the ranks. He understands what's going on. He understands the employees. He understands and he reaches out to those individuals and such. And it's because of those things that I think that the process that's currently in place is one that we should continue to have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jan Simpson, followed by Lillian Spears.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm a retiree of the Board of Water and Light, having worked there for 27 years. I found the BWL to be a strong community partner, and it was a pleasure working for an organization of this nature. Since retiring, I've continued to be an active member of the community, attending Board of Water and Light Board of Commissioners meetings and meeting with fellow retirees. This has given me a front row seat to the functioning of the Board of Water and Light Commissioners. I see them debate respectfully on issues, engage the public through their public comments and hearings, and listen carefully to the subject matter experts who work at the Board of Water and Light. Take it from someone who has seen it working. The BWL Board of Commissioners does not need to be changed. They are an appointed board, appointed by the mayor, who is elected by the people of Lansing, and are vetted, questioned, and confirmed by the City Council. That's an extensive and transparent process for a volunteer board. Once appointed, they are trained in board governance, and the Board of Water and Light offers ample opportunity for them to attend further training through the many statewide or national associations they are members of, like the American Public Power Association. They do all this while still being volunteers with no compensation. It's obvious to me that they care deeply about making the right decisions for this community, and we hope this commission will continue to allow them to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Lillian Spears, followed by Linda Keefe.
Hello, my name is Lillian Spears, and I'm here today to support the Board of Water and Light. It's a privilege to stand before you today as someone who not only works for the Board of Water and Light, but also a lifetime member of the Lansing community. As a high school senior, I had the unique opportunity to participate in the Board of Water and Light's First Step program. This program gives students a work-based learning experience and a chance to obtain skills for the future. Through this program, I gained real-world experience that set me ahead far above my peers. Not only did I gain hands-on experience, have the opportunity to work alongside mentors, connect with future leaders, and gain insight into the kind of work that would later inspire my career, but I also was awarded scholarship funds to later help me in college. I currently work in our strategic planning department, where I see firsthand how my colleagues develop guidelines that support our community and drive innovation and sustainability. The Board of Water and Light is not only all about investing in the future, but it is especially investing in our most valuable resource, our people. The First Step program is just one example of the BWL's commitment to developing talent in our community. We understand that our success is intertwined with the success of the community that we serve. By nurturing the next generation of leaders and professionals, we're ensuring a bright future, not only for our company, but for the greater Lansing area. We are a community that believes in progress, that believes in each other, and that believes in the power of investing in people. I can confidently say that we are more than just a utility company, but we are the future.
Thank you. Next is Linda Keefe, followed by Katie Abraham.
Hi, Linda Keefe here, and I am here actually for the customers of BWL that are suffering, many of them suffering with outrageously high bills. Last time I mentioned, well, one woman actually spoke before this body and said that she paid $9,600 in bills last year. That is wrong. One of the big problems here is the smart meters. They've been tested, sometimes charging people up to 6% more than they should. Even the opt-out smart meters have been tested and shown to be charging people 15% more than they should. I'm going to read a statement. This is Becca Geller, Board of Water and Light electricity consumer since 2016. I submitted that to all of you today, her testimony as well as documents. I've done a lot of research. Lansing's residents suffering from high Board of Water and Light bills, percentage of income payment plans, DTE and Consumers Energy have both had pilot programs. DTE said its pilot program they are having lower shutoffs now because of that program, and it surpassed the program that they had already had in place, which was for low-income ratepayers. Also, there's an Excel sheet in your packet with various PIP programs. There's now, including Michigan, they're in 27 states now. They started in 1983. I know I don't have a ton of time here. So back to Rebecca. She said no to the smart meter, came home to find the smart meter installed. Her bills kept going up. Early in 2024, she had a payment plan with DHS. BWL was switching protocol for DHS communication. Geller gets shut off before her portion of the payment arrangement was due. Board of Water and Light told her, oh, well, charged her a reconnect fee and a deposit and made her sit in the dark for 4 hours in the middle of January while she was just recovering from 7 months bed rest due to an ankle injury. She never got her deposit back. She's paying a ridiculous amount of about $1,000 every 2 months, and she's only home in the evenings and weekends. She said that she has probably paid $50,000 or more since 2016 to Board of Water and Light. She said electricity is a basic need, not a hot commodity. She paid $234 today to avoid a shutoff and still owes $270 before the next bill comes out. She says it's a vicious cycle, and it is. And so I have given you all a proposal, and now we're running out of time, of course, but I believe that this board can address some of these issues. We may need to make sure that Board of Water and Light does not have full and exclusive management. People are suffering in this city, and I'm sorry that they can't be here tonight. And obviously, it's a big deal because this entire room is full of Board of Water and Light employees.
Thank you. Next, we have Katie Abraham.
Thank you.
Followed by Loretta Stanaway.
Good evening. I am Katie Abraham, the Executive Director of the Michigan Municipal Electric Association, or MMEA. We represent all 40 of the state's municipally owned electric utilities, with the Lansing Board of Water and Light being our largest member. When the lights go out, everyone wants to trust that their local utility provider will deliver and quickly restore power. In the greater Lansing region, citizens are fortunate to be served energy by the Lansing Board of Water and Light. BWL has always been committed to providing exceptional customer service and being community partners. Like all of MMEA's members, BWL is a not-for-profit organization, which means there are no shareholders or private interests. BWL's revenue is invested back in the community through upgrading water infrastructure, strengthening the electric grid, increasing cybersecurity efforts, and more. It means dollars stay local to continue delivering safe and reliable utility services. By focusing on affordability over profits, customers get high-quality service without the high cost. Again, like all our publicly owned utility members, BWL is accountable directly to the people it serves because it's owned by the citizens. The Lansing region benefits from this local oversight from an unpaid board of commissioners made up of the people who live in the region and can directly reflect the community's priorities. The board holds regular, open meetings where decisions are made, further supporting transparency to its customers. It's important to note that it's for these reasons that BWL's governance model is the preferred model for public power utilities both in Michigan and nationally. I have members right now that are exploring ways to move from a city council model to a utility board model. What BWL has is the envy of most. Additionally, being independent and local means publicly owned utilities like BWL are more agile in decision-making and can ensure their decisions reflect the values of their community. BWL employees aren't just workers, they're your neighbors. They're volunteering at your church or coaching your kids' baseball team. And as your neighbors, they're ready to respond quickly and efficiently to get your power back on when disaster strikes. People ask me all the time why our power is the most reliable in the state. This is one of the main reasons why. BWL's mission is to provide a safe, reliable, and affordable utility experience through public ownership, climate consciousness, and innovative strategies. It means doing more than just keeping the lights on. It's about a utility that's been deeply rooted in supporting its customers and community for 140 years. At its core, that's what public power is all about, and the Lansing region should be proud of the work their hometown utility does day in and day out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Loretta Stanaway, followed by Saray Eaton.
Well, I was fortunate to find a parking space given all the crowd that we have today. There's a bit of a dog and pony show here where the numbers of Board of Water and Light members far outreach the average citizens. And I think that could be considered to be a little obstructionist and intimidating as it kind of frightens off some speakers and takes up a lot of the time that we might otherwise devote to other issues tonight. I think that the council needs to look at being able to see all applicants for boards and commissions, including the Board of Water and Light, so that when a mayor proposes a specific person for a commission, the council has the idea of who else was in the pool that they might have preferred if they had had the chance to examine that pool of applicants. I think there should be term limits on all boards and commissions, but especially on the Board of Water and Light. I don't think anyone should be able to serve over a total of, say, 10 or 12 years. 20 years for one person on the board, no matter what board it is, no matter what person it is not a good form of governance, in my opinion, because you don't get a change of views, you don't get an influx of new thinking, you don't get an influx of new ideas. The Board of Water and Light has shown to us as the public that they are very against listening to things like the idea that natural gas might be an outmoded form of creating energy at this point in time. They consistently push for more natural gas facilities against the advice of economists and environmentalists and energy experts. The difference of 88 cents a month on our electric bills isn't going to break all of us, but it can break some of us, and we had no say in whether or not that was going to be on our bills. The board opted to go with a state program, which then enacted the 88-cent fee, and we had no choice in that matter, which makes it, in my view, an unfair and illegal tax. We're also paying hydrant fees, and we're also paying for a lot of different things that are optional that the board could eliminate that we don't need to be supporting with our hard-earned dollars. So I would say that let's get limits on the terms, let's get open application pools, and let's make some change. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Saray Eaton, followed by Calvin Jones.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Saray Eaton. I'm a retired physician in the Lansing area. The Eaton family has been in Lansing since the late 1800s, which is around the time that the Board of Water and Light was established in 1885. So over the last 140 years, Board of Water and Light has served the Lansing community. As you know, they are an administrative board appointed by the mayor and overseen by the city council. I do agree that the city council overseeing the selected individuals is a very important part of the process. They are vetted during that time, and those individuals serve, as has been said, without any compensation. However, the opinion of the most my opinion, however, of the most important part of this utility is that they are run by the people. They are run by the people of this community. They are not a for-profit utility, which is what some of the utilities in this state are. I believe it should stay as an independent entity appointed by the mayor with the oversight of the council as stated. Are there concerns from time to time? Certainly. Any large organization, utility company, or otherwise, there's going to be concerns. However, I think in all that the Water and Light has very few issues that are outstanding. I also see that the Water and Light feeds back to the people in this community. They are present everywhere. They are present in things like the Riverwalk, the arts festivals. They support many nonprofit organizations in this community, and you would not see that kind of support from a for-profit organization or utility company. In closing, I just want to say that the Board of Water and Light has been here for 140 years, and I don't think it needs to change at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Calvin Jones, followed by Randy Dykeheis.
Good evening, Commissioners. Can you hear me okay? All right. I just want to take time to let you know I've been with the Board of Water and Light for 48 years. I've lived in Lansing all my life. Went to Otto, went to Pattengale, went to Willow Street School before, all of that, and yeah, proud Eastern Quaker. When I came out of the military, the Board of Water and Light asked me to join the team at the Board of Water and Light. It was totally different than what it is today. And the only reason I accepted the job at the Board of Water and Light, and I had plenty of opportunities to go elsewhere, was because the culture was changing, and I wanted to be a part of that culture. When I first got here, I was pushing a broom like anybody else. I was taught by the government how to push a broom and clean toilets and do the things that needed to be done. I came to the Board of Water and Light, I started at the bottom, and I worked my way up, and Dick Peffley was on the other end, and he worked his way up as well. We were proud of this company, and we are more than proud of this company today. Today, it's been very responsive to the customer needs. You're going to hear things about people saying things about they got charged a bill that was whatever the case. In the old days, those calls wouldn't have even gotten through. They don't even answer those calls when I started out here. Today, you get a response, and if you don't get a response, the general manager wants to know about it. And he wants us all to get those responses and get back to the people because he wants us to be responsive. We're here in this community. We're not going anywhere. And we choose to be in the position that we're in because we all have a job to do, but we all find ways to give back. It's a total team effort. You all hear me say, teamwork makes the dream work. I didn't make that up, but I preach that everywhere I go. I stand on the shoulders of many, and I have a number of people here who support the Board of Water and Light tonight. And if I can get support, if you can stand up and represent the Board of Water and Light, I'd certainly appreciate it at this time. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay? And the people here tonight are not just here for a show of anything other than to let you know we care about the place that we work at. We work hard every day. We give money back to the city of Lansing. We eat here. We work here. We play here. This is the best place in the world to be. We choose as Americans to be right here in the capital city of Lansing, and we're not going anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Randy Dykhuis, followed by Stan Schuck.
Okay. Hi. Randy Dykhuis, 418 North Sycamore, proud fourth warder. So you've obviously received a whole lot of input about BWL, much of it very detailed, which in your packet. So I'm not going to contribute a lot of detail here to contribute to your information overload. I'd simply like to say the charter really has nothing to do with management of BWL. Rather, governance is its concern. An old saying has it that management is about doing things right, while governance is about doing the right things. BWL from the outside appears to be well managed. Lights come on, water turns on when I turn on the faucet. However, when it comes to governance, it's making sure that BWL is doing the right things instead of doing things right. It's another story. Much of the time, we don't know whether BWL is doing the right things because so little information is asked for by the board, let alone provided by management. Rate increases are a case in point. In your packet is a letter from the current Board of Commissioners, and it says the budget is provided to the board with potential increases in early spring. And over the course of those months, we ask tough questions of the staff regarding why those increases are needed. I wonder where and when those tough questions were asked. I attended every public meeting where the rate increases were on the agenda and heard no board members ask anything remotely resembling tough. Sadly, it's a reality that the BWL board very rarely probes deeply into issues, such as rate setting. Instead, the board takes what management says, gives a perfunctory review, and promptly signs off on it. Last year's rate increase was a case in point. Contrary to what appears in the letter from the board, there was no in-depth probing of the need for the rate increase or request for detailed internal documents that would have justified the imposition of the high increases for yet another 2 years. You also have in your packet letters from council members Brian Jackson and former BWL Commissioner Dusty Horwitz, who detail multiple instances where management was hardly forthright with its own board. Rather than hold management accountable for these inexplicable lapses, it was as if nothing untoward had happened. Short of something criminal, I honestly do not know what would make the Board of Commissioners act like a real governing authority. Finding a solution is not easy for you, but I do believe an independent, appointed administrative board should be retained. However, I would strongly urge you to think about how you can provide structure to make sure the board holds management more accountable. 3 things. Modify the appointment process for the board so that it's joint action with City Council and the mayor. Set a 2 consecutive term limit for all board members. And perhaps most importantly, move the internal auditing function to City Council. Would these changes guarantee a better board? No, but it would create a better environment for that to happen. Thank you.
Next, we have Stan Schuck, followed by Stephen Perry.
Good evening, Stan Schuck. I'm a customer too, and I'll tell you a little bit of my dismay. In October of last year, I dropped my payment in the payment box at the board on Friday afternoon, about 3 o'clock. On the following Wednesday, the power went out. So I called the board to report a power outage, and they said, no, you were shut off for non-payment. And so I dropped the check off myself Friday. And after a little discussion, they put me on hold, and they had someone run out to the payment box. And sure enough, there were all the payments that were made from Friday through Wednesday still sitting in the box. So they agreed to process the check, but they still charged me a fee to turn my lights back on, even though they're contractors. It's a contractor now that processes those, if you didn't know. So I guess my advice is to put on the bill in writing that if you choose to use the 24-hour drop box, that your check will not be processed for 3 to 5 days. Once you make that choice and you drop it in the box, there is a sticker on the box. That's your only notification. And then in January, over the holiday, I dropped it off. They had my check physically in their possession for 9 days without processing it, and shut my lights off again. I called. So they ended up calling the processor, and they had it, but they hadn't processed it yet. They called me later that afternoon. The processor called me, and they wanted to know if I want my check back or if they should make that double payment. So I had to mail my check back to me. And that's happened. I believe it's called Alliance. Now, is there predatory rate cost? This is a real simple question. They had a peak hours. Dick's been down here over the years saying peak hours, peak hours, peak hours. Stem your use during peak hours. So people did that. So what did the board do? They expanded their peak hours because people were now using less during what the board deemed their peak hours. So they stretched that out for an hour on each end. That's predatory. Any way you shake it down. People aren't using more electricity. They're just using more expensive electricity. And that's wrong. And not to mention, the city proper should come first for all emergencies. During the last tornado, Delta Township came first. They had more customers affected than the city proper, so they came first. My neighborhood went 11 days while they cleaned up out in Delta Township. It's ours. We own it. Lansing should come first and foremost on every emergency, period.
Thank you. Next is Stephen Perry, followed by Tammy Arend.
Hello. Good evening, commissioners. First, I'd like to start off by saying the obvious. The Board of Water and Light's not perfect, and I don't think we've ever claimed to be. My name is Steve Perry, the business manager for IBEW that supports the labor contract for the Board of Water and Light. I represent hardworking men and women who live, work, and give back in this community. We are the definition of hometown people, hometown power. This is not just a motto, but who we are as a workforce and as a company. Many of the functions of the BWL are created through the City of Lansing's charter, like the BWL's ability to hire, set rules, or set rates, buy or sell property, etc. I believe that in the BWL's 140-year history, it has functioned with a high degree of integrity and honesty. I cannot think of a better example than in the 2013 ice storm and the absolute whirlwind of changes that came from that. These changes came from City of Lansing residents and ratepayers, the mayor, city council, and our board of directors. Then to see these changes in action, from trimming trees to staffing crews to emergency agreements, et cetera. In August 2023, we had a major storm that took out a large section of our service area. Due to the actions taken by the BWL and the hard work of the IBW men and women, service was restored in record time and became pretty much the platform for how to do it. I would also like to talk about a little bit of the BWL's community involvement. I just want to list a few for everyone in attendance today. Adopt a River, Pennies for Power, BWL 5K Race, Golf for Charity event, United Way Kickoff and Campaign, Silver Bells in the City, Tourists in Your Own Town, and the list goes on. Our attendance here today is not meant to be intimidating, but inspiring. We show up because we care. We show up because this matters to us. We show up because we always show up for this community. It's what we do as a workforce. It's what we do as a company. With that being said, I'd like to say that we have a winning recipe here. It's been proven for 140 years, which is why IBW Local 352 is asking that no changes be made to the charter that would affect the Board of Water and Light. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Tammy Arend, followed by Al Maywood, maybe?
Good evening. I'm Tammy Arend, Customer Board of Water and Light. First of all, y'all here that's up on the committee, you need to realize you're being played. I commend everybody here for Board of Water and Light standing up for their employer, but that's manipulating you. And it's discouraging people from speaking out. I mean, who would want to come and go against their employer? That's just common sense. We, the low income I represent, how we have to live with Board of Water and Light's added fees. We do not get up before 8 o'clock at night. We sleep because we can't afford the peak hours. Water, we bathe in a shower with buckets in order to save for our water bills because we cannot afford it. People shouldn't have to live that way where they can't live in normal hours. Michigan, they recommend 3 to 7 for peak hours. Why do we have from 1 to 8 p.m.? Board of Water and Light has been talked to about this many times, but they don't listen to people. Hometown people and hometown companies, they listen to the people and they respond. We're not being listened to. I give everybody credit for talking, but talking's cheap. Action means words. So let us live, and please listen to us, because this isn't fair. We're not living, we're existing. And, for somebody to only take a shower twice a month in buckets to flush their toilets because they can't afford it, that's disgusting. Where they go to sleep before 1 o'clock in the afternoon and sleep the day away because they can't afford the bills. So everything's turned off and plugged in their house. So I'm asking you, as committee, please listen and understand we need changes. The fees exceed our bills. That should never happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Al Maywood, maybe? Al?
I'm a downtown business owner. Just a quick question here. Is the city of Lansing, the downtown area boundary, is that going to change at all? How would I find out, follow through on this?
There's been no proposal before us, and I don't think we'd be the ones who would set it.
Because DLI showed me the current one, and I was just curious if the downtown boundary was going to change at all. So you don't know of any changes with that? Okay, good. If I had anything else to say. No, that's what I was concerned with. I didn't have to contact you another way. I own a cigar bar downtown, Been down there since '08. I'm a retired federal agent, former cop from Detroit. I've been in Lansing since '89, worked at the federal building, so. But I appreciate your effort, commissioners, on whatever, every day you hear this, whenever you're here. I appreciate your, diligence on doing stuff, and hope you remain diligent on the taxpayers' inquiries. So thank you.
Thank you. And that was our final speaker signed in.
Okay, we are through officers' reports on the agenda. Under the chair's report, I have no report this time. Madam Vice Chair.
No report.
Mr. Clerk.
Just that there are written communications in the packet, including some late ones that are color-coded, and those were added to the online packet as well. So for our viewing audience at home, if you want to look at those, they're available.
All right, thank you. So we'll go to number 7, old business. How we're going to run this tonight, we're going to start with Article 5, and it's going to be Section 5-201 through 5-207. This deals solely with the Board of Water and Light. What I'd like to do, back in November, we received communication from the board where they were proposing several amendments, and they actually put together a red line version, or at least mine is blue. And I'd like to work off that because that is the form of how we've worked on things before. So what it does is it sets forth the actual Board of Water and Light sections, and then includes in them the proposed changes that they're recommending, but we'll consider those obviously, and we can consider other changes as well. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. In your notebooks, it will be on the green paper. Is it going to be popped up on the screen, or?
I have the text of the charter not.
Okay. All right. So, does everybody understand what we're going to be doing tonight and how we're going to do it? Okay. So let's begin Section 5-201 under general responsibility. The Board of Water and Light has offered several amendments, an amendment to change and update basically what the responsibilities that they have here in the city. They want to add chilled water, thermal energy, including heat, which we already have, or hot water, which would be new. Those would be the only changes that they are proposing at that point. Does anybody have any questions or concerns? Anyone? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to approve? It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? This would be for the entire section 5-201. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, passes. Section 5-202, point 1, the request is to change the term of director to general manager. Again, that would reflect what is currently going on and how it's going on in terms of the board. Is there a motion to approve that change? It's been moved. Is there support? It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes unanimously. Then point 2, no changes that are being recommended there. This deals with the internal auditor of the board, not of the entire entity, but this would be the internal auditor that's assigned to the Board of Commissioners. Is there any changes or concerns? Councilmember, or pardon me.
I just want a clarification. You said the internal auditor is only auditing the commission?
It's working for
The commission.
the commissioners. So, and as it was explained to us last week when we had the internal auditor down
Right.
for some statements, she indicated that they work very closely with the finance department
Okay.
or committee and are carrying out audits.
I was just
throughout.
confused by what you just said, so I understand.
I try not to confuse people.
That's okay. It could just be me. Thank you.
Okay, sure. On point 2, any other questions, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, passes unanimously. Point 3, regarding the board secretary position. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. We're to 5-203 under powers. Go ahead.
I just want to be clear because so many people have talked about the auditor, the internal auditor. I want to make it clear that folks should know that it's not just the internal auditor. They also have external auditors come in. And so it's important for you to realize that the internal auditor really only audits so that they get a clean audit when the external auditor comes in. And that's really important to understand when you're asking for the auditor to answer to city council, which in my opinion should never happen. But they are not the end all in auditing. It's the external auditor that comes from a private company that does the major audit. Just for clarification.
Any other comments on that? Okay. Under point 1, does anybody have any questions or comments regarding that? Pardon me?
Under the powers.
Yes. 5-203.1. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Passes. Point 2, this is regarding real and personal property acquisition and I believe disposition maybe. Anyone have any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Yes. Commissioner Lopez. If you go to point, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, my question is, in terms of acquiring property, I mean, they can and they do that, but do they follow city procedures for, what type of property, where? And I'm talking about city of Lansing, obviously.
We could.
They are subject to.
Yeah, if you look at point 3, that deals with the sale of real property, and it's subject to review by and approval by city council, majority of the city council.
Okay,
has
so
to
there's
approve
a
that.
review there.
Dick,
It's
if
not-
you want to come down, have a seat, please. And if you have any staff that you'd like to bring with you, it would be great. Could you answer that question about the purchase of property? Or do your policies kind of mirror what the city requires for themselves?
Yes, happy to answer that. Martin Mattis is the corporate counsel, and I can tell you that we follow the city's direction.
Yes, we do follow the city's lead on that. We get appraisals and make sure that we're spending the money wisely with
Okay.
the whole
Commissioner Lopez,
process,
is there-
including the disposition of the property. We take it to all the, internally at the BWL and then to the city to make sure that nobody wants it before we dispose of it.
My point is that the city does have input into the business of the Board of Water and Light. And if council chooses to ask questions, it's up to them, whoever they are. So, I mean, that was my basic point here. Thank you.
Thank you. So on point 2, are there any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. Point 3 deals with the disposition of property. Anybody have any questions?
I do have a question for the board. Currently, the second part of that says, subject to the approval of 6 city council members. Recall that you changed the structure of council down to 7. So do you want to keep the 6, which is a super majority, or back that down to 5?
Yes, if we could do the majority.
Yes, thank you.
So the amendment would be to have 4. That be correct?
So if you just want a simple majority out of 7, it would require just 4. Yeah, but if you wanted to maintain a higher percentage, you certainly could, but.
Was there a motion? Commissioner Washington.
I would recommend that we just leave it at majority because through amendment or anything else through our charter, that council composition can be changed, but this will be input, so I say just majority because that's what it should be.
So with that language, we have language that would mirror then the other portion of the charter that talks about majority of council. Attorney. members elected?
Like a majority of members elected has been
Okay.
what you've used in the past.
All right, so the proposal is to amend point 3 to where it says approval in second, or first sentence, second line, after approval, strike of 6 and the number 6, and insert a majority of, and then it would read city council members.
Elected.
Does that, someone want to move that? It's been moved and supported. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all.
I do actually want to add, because we have to jump ahead a little bit to Article 8, for sale of city property in general. Looking at Chapter 4, Section 8-403.4. No interest in real property may be sold by the city without either the affirmative vote of the people or the affirmative vote of 2/3 of the council members serving. So the general method in which property is sold by the city itself would require one of those two methods. So it could be 2/3 of members serving. So there is at least support elsewhere for more than a majority approving sale of real property.
Okay, we have a motion before us. Does anyone want to amend that motion or move forward? Commissioner Washington.
Maybe we want to amend the part that says 2/3 and not necessarily this part.
All right, so the motion would be to amend the motion, and the amendment would be after approval, it would be a 2/3 vote of city council. Would that be the amendment? If we're,
If you want to have it mirror what Article 8 says
Okay.
in terms of approval by the city council.
does anybody want to make that motion, or are we satisfied with a majority? Yes, Commissioner Kui.
I just had a point of clarification. Are we talking about changing Article 8?
No.
That she said, or you?
The article that we're
The
working on.
articles you're working with to change it to 2/3?
Yes.
I don't think we can because there was a motion that's on the floor and approved. Right?
Right, this would be a motion to amend that motion.
Okay.
I mean, technically, we can do it. Is there a will here to do it, is what I'm asking. Commission,
Majority.
it's currently at a majority we've got in front of us for consideration. Does anyone want to change that, is what I'm asking? No? Yes, Commissioner Bauer.
I'm thinking, because then we would do this throughout
You would have to.
the charter, and this is property, I think it needs to be more than a simple majority.
Okay, then Commissioner Washington.
With only 7 council members, you're going to have 4-3. What do you want it to be, 5-2? I just want majority, so I'll vote against that, but
Well, all right, Commissioner Bauer, do you want to make a motion to amend the amendment, the proposed amendment?
I do, I would like to amend the proposed amendment that it is 2/3.
2/3. Okay, is there support for that? Motion to amend. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? On that motion, Mr. Clerk, would you want to call a roll call, please?
On the amendment to the amendment, so that would make it 2/3, Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer. Commissioner Boyd. Commissioner Dowd. Commissioner Jeffries.
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez. Commissioner Kui. Commissioner Washington.
no.
Commissioner Adam Simon.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 nay.
Okay, that does pass. Now, a motion to approve the,
Well, the motion is.
Can I ask for a point of clarification? Was that members serving or members elected?
I'm sorry, currently it reads approval of 2/3 of city council members. It doesn't say elected.
That was part of the motion, wasn't it?
It was part of the motion? Oh. Was it? Okay. It is elected. Okay. It's, any other?
Voted to pass a 2/3 majority of city council members elected.
Okay. Any other questions on this before we move on? Hearing none. Point 4. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this? Anyone? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Point 5. Anyone have any questions on this? Commissioner Dowd.
I just want to be sure it's stating that the budget would be filed with the clerk within 10 days after adoption. Is that currently happening and we're good? Like, there's no concern about that time parameter? Okay. Now it's time to change it if there is. So.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Point 6. Commissioner Dowd, do you want to answer or ask the same question? Do we make, does that get done on time?
Does that currently?
That goes to the mayor, so I don't know.
Oh, okay. I guess, Mr. Heffley, have you been meeting the October 1 deadline?
Yes, we have.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Anderson.
Is there a reason it's for 6 years specifically?
Industry best practices so that
Okay.
we can program out. The out years are more flexible, but kind of gives an outward look to where the company is headed, ties to our strategic plan.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other yes.
Question, since it's 6 years, when a mayor is newly elected, does it just overflow into the next 2 years for the new mayor? The 6-year proposal? Or is there something presented differently to the new mayor?
No, it overflows, but it's every year, it's approved, and so it can change as, be fluid. Like I said, it's an outlook for cash flow budgeting process, but every year we do the annual budget that's submitted and then to the mayor and the council.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Approval of point 6. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed?
I just had a question.
Commissioner Lopez.
Yeah. So this, you said the 6 years, it goes along with your strategic plan, right? Okay. Does the council or the mayor get to see that with enough time?
Yes, they do.
It's submitted to council?
Yep.
Okay.
And council or mayor at any time can request documents from us anytime throughout the year, and they typically do. Just a few weeks ago, they asked me to come down and explain an audit that we had, and so we're very responsive to the council and or mayor's request.
Okay. So if council has an issue with anything, they discuss it with your board and come to an agreement or what?
Typically, they use me as a spokesperson, so council asks me to come down to this table and speak to them, and anything we can answer, we get immediate feedback to them. It seemed to have worked very well.
Thank you.
Commissioner.
Mr. Pepperly, do you attend the mayor's cabinet meetings?
Every Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Let's grill them some more.
Yes.
Come on.
They're there.
All right. All those in favor of point 7, say aye. Pardon me, I'm sorry, point 6. Say aye. Those opposed? Passes unanimously. Point 7. Any questions on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes unanimously. Just on that point, Mr. Peffley, when everybody's getting together, they're planning a road project or some project that's being done, and, you know, other departments are coming in, what kind of planning goes into that? How do you do that?
We have a planning department that works close with the city as well as MDOT, AT&T, Consumers Energy, so that you try to tear the road up once and put all the utilities at the same time. Doesn't always work out. But the board is really well aligned with the city of Lansing. Our folks talk back and forth all the time. And where we can use common contracts like CSO, typically the board installs all its own water main, but it doesn't make sense to have two or three companies working in the same trench, so we allow the city's contractor to do their water main work, and then our folks have an inspector to make sure it meets our specs. So there's a lot of coordination there, and we look at that for road closures and trying to keep traffic flow, but we pretty much follow the city on CSO, and then we have our own water main work that's out in the roads, but the city's aware of that, and the two planning departments work very well together.
Okay, thank you. All right, on point 8, any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes unanimously. Point 9, the board is requesting a change here where, well, you can see it. And this apparently, as I understand it, is basically what is being done at this point in terms of functionality.
Go ahead, Mark.
Precisely, yes.
And is this done then in consultation with the city?
We run the audits independently, but we submit them.
Yeah, but in terms of selection of the auditor, how is that done?
We do that independently.
You do that independently?
Yes.
So the city's not reviewing that? There's no oversight?
There's as much oversight as the city wants, but I think Heather, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we do an RFP and select our own outside auditing firms.
All right. Okay, any questions? With the amendments as they are presented, all those in favor say aye.
No, I have a question. I'm not ready to vote on that.
Oh, what question? I'm sorry.
It's okay. So my question on that is, the language says the board may conduct whatever audits it deems appropriate. So how often are we auditing everything that happens within the board? That's my concern. So if I'm a board member, and this came across one of our communications from a previous commissioner, they said, well, why would we audit something if it's going to make us look bad? So where's the checks and balances to ensure that every part of the board is audited on a regular, recurring basis?
There's two really types of audits. The actual management has internal controls where I ask staff to audit things to make sure that they're going the way I've asked. And then there's the auditor that works for the Board of Commissioners. And I've never seen them be shy on assigning audits. I mean, they've asked, Alicia Franco spoke last week that she's independent. She doesn't work for me. In fact, we don't have really any interaction when she does an audit. She reviews that audit with our assistant GM, but it goes straight to the commission. And whatever recommendations that they admit, that she submits, we have the opportunity to agree, disagree, or implement. But 99% of the time, we implement what the auditor says, and the commissioners pick whatever they think the audit group can get done, because the auditor also relies on outside audits to help. And they audit, there's best practices for auditing. They look at financials, P-card, billing. I've never seen them steer away from an audit to, because they think they're going to get a bad report. That's the only way to fix things, is you have the auditor and the commissioner set those audits. Management has no input in that. We're in the meeting, but they'll say, okay, I would like these 8 things audited this year, and you get back to us. And that's a group of 8 in a public meeting. So I think if there was something where somebody says you're shying away from an audit, it would come out. So I've never heard that statement before.
So if I could follow up on that, I realized last meeting when we were kind of briefed on what happens during the audit process was enlightening. What's interesting to me is that we just found out an issue with the security deposits after many, many years. I would assume an external audit should have caught that a long time ago. And that's my concern, like that's a long time and millions of dollars that were on deposit of our citizens' money. And so I just am not sure, to me, I don't feel there's a good transparency in the audit process. That should have been caught long before.
Yeah, I think you just proved the point. You know, when they brought this up, we thought the security deposit thing was working smoothly, management did. The auditor looked at it, and yes, it didn't come back, the recommendations didn't come back what we were expecting to see. We concurred with them, and we made the adjustments. So, you know, that one probably should have been brought up sooner, and I'm sure it's on a different schedule. Well, it's been audited and some corrections are made, but yeah, you know, if management had any input or the commissioners wanted to shy away, well, don't audit that because it's not going to look good. It didn't look good. We were very transparent about it. So, the case in point is you're right, and I would think that. You know, if there's anything else the commission's involved is that they would say, hey, you need to audit this. And the internal auditor, she brings recommendations, and she came from within the company, so she knows the inner workings of the company. So I think that's a value for the commissioners. When you bring an outside auditor in, it takes, you know, it's a very complicated company. Well, Alicia ran the internal control side, so she knows what should be audited more frequently than not. So yeah, that was definitely not, when I saw that, well, this doesn't look good, but we made the corrections, we refunded the money, and we moved on to the next audit.
Other questions? Commissioner Anderson.
It's really just a thought, and I don't even know if it would go in this section, so I'm just talking out loud. But I think that it would be a good idea to add in the charter that the city may conduct an internal audit of the Board of Water and Light if they deem necessary. So even though they're doing their own audit, the city has the option to do one as well if they have capacity or deem it necessary for whatever reason.
Well, you know, I think, Ms. Beffley.
They have that. I agree with you, and they have that right now.
Okay.
That the council can instruct the commissioners that they want to see this audit done at the Board of Water and Light. That is in there, and one of the council members, the council's right now.
But that's so you're saying that right now council can instruct your auditor to do an audit. Is that what you're saying?
Close. They have to go through our commissioners.
Right.
But I've never seen the commissioners, if the council asked our commission to do an audit and the commissioner said no, I would think there would be a problem with that, to be honest with you. But
yeah.
I do work for the commissioners, so I don't want to speak for them, but that's how it's written right now.
Yeah, but what if council wanted to use the city's internal auditor?
Well, in the charter, the internal auditor for city council is specifically prohibited from doing any audit on the Board of Water and Light.
Right. So I was just throwing that out there that they don't have to, but maybe we could change it to say that they can.
You know, we can have that discussion, but the reality is, and as we've heard from council, that currently their internal auditor has got so much on their plate, it's not getting done. They don't have the staff to even do their own work, let alone pick up something at the BWL.
And I think that that's completely valid, but I think that that's based off of today, right? And so we don't know what the auditor's capacity is going to be 7 years from now, right? Or what that audit team is going to look like. And we also don't know what issues may arise or not arise, but with the Board of Water and Light, where maybe the city would want to intervene in that capacity. And so I'm just throwing that out there as an option. And again, like we could talk about that when we go back to that section. But I think it's just worth having that conversation.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? On point 9 then, is there a motion to move it? As amended? It's been moved. Is there support? It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Passes. Point 10. Any questions about the pensions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. Point 11. Any questions or concerns about that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. before we leave this section, I think I misspoke myself when I asked about the city's involvement in hiring of the auditor. I didn't mean the internal auditor for the board. I was thinking more of the external audits that are conducted by the board. You work with the city on that, correct? I mean, I
No,
thought
the
there was some-
commissioners work with their auditor to hire the external auditor.
But I thought there was some approval by city council or somebody on that.
Not to my knowledge, we present the audit to them, but they don't.
I mean, in terms of hiring the external auditor.
No,
the
it's
firm.
hired from, through, on the board side. The city doesn't have input in the hiring. They just, we have to bring the report down here and go over that with the city council.
All right. Okay. All right, I'm sorry.
No.
Commissioner Kuwait.
No, I'm working on point 11.
Oh, you want to go back to point 11?
I thought, did we resolve it?
Yeah, we've just voted on it.
Yeah. No, I want to go, no, 204, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Withdrawal
we're
funds.
to 5-204, withdrawal of funds. Point 1, there is a request to have an amendment.
And I have a
Madam
question
Vice
for
Chair.
BWL. Currently, it states that the funds and revenues of the BWL shall be deposited in the city treasury and shall be credited only to the funds and accounts of BWL. They shall not be withdrawn or used for any other purpose whatsoever. The board shall have and exercise full control over all the funds of BWL in the city treasurer. Now, this has been occurring since 1978. Why are you proposing this change now? Because people talk about transparency, and it seems like you're kind of taking that back. So could you please explain that?
Yes.
It's, it was changed by the city council by means of an ordinance. The city council passed an ordinance that allows for the current practice. This happened in 1988.
Okay.
To allow for this current practice of the separation of the two accounts and that the BWL pays its own bills, which we're subject to, and we do an annual audit from an outside firm that we were just talking about, so that we do have oversight on that issue.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, on the section, as the proposed, with the proposed amendments, are there any other? Commissioner Boyd.
Just a point of clarification, so does that mean that what you're recommending and what we're looking at would take us back to the original language?
No,
And not
this will impose current practice.
Okay.
We're updating the section
Very good.
from what it was to how it's being done today. With the ordinance. Correct. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Point 2. This, again, are some amendments that are being requested in terms of who can help make payment. And this language that is being proposed is currently how this has been operating. And I think it's just an update to that language. Are there any questions, comments? Commissioner Lopez.
Was this also a change by council?
This is just a consistency with the change to 204.1 that we're not going to have the city controller involved anymore. That it'll all be internal to the BWL, the general manager and the corporate secretary, signing off on all warrants.
Okay.
So
in
is this
essence,
the
city
practice
council-
that was adopted after the ordinance was passed?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, this is consistent with the ordinance process.
So city council itself, took that responsibility away from them and that oversight that we're talking about.
I'm not sure about oversight.
I think they just cleaned up the process so that there wasn't this dual system of depositing it into the city treasury. I'm going back to 1988. I wasn't around for that, but that's, I think, what the intent was, is to smooth out the process so that the BWL was managing its own funds, but nonetheless here having this counter signature to
Yeah.
payments.
I understand all that. I just reflect on the fact that city council itself divested itself of this type of oversight.
True. Agreed.
And if we want to keep that, I guess it's up to us to either go along with the flow or or change it. I mean, they may come back and do the same thing again because they've done it once. So a lot of these things has to do with what council wants to do. The city charter can be whatever it is, but city council can, do these types of things.
Yeah.
Sure. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none on point 2 as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Nope.
Sorry, I think that just like on here, it's a typo, where it says and general manager of the board, I think all that should be struck out at the end. It seems like it. Sorry, it seems, yeah, it says general manager twice. So I think,
And and the general manager of the board.
but it already says by the general manager and countersigned by the secretary of the board and, yeah.
Got it. Okay, so, all right, let's go back and amend this. And.
We don't want you to have to sign twice.
So we put a period after secretary of the board and then strike the remainder of that sentence. So with that, we will move to amend that section. Doing that, is there a motion?
Second.
It's been moved and supported, so on the amendment, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. And then in the, on the point 2 now as amended, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. Point 3, one minor amendment there. Again, this is a consistency amendment. But take your time, take a look. Commissioner Dowd.
I'm curious if it makes sense to have the actual rate of 6% built into the charter, or should that be a more vague language and that could be done by
There's a lot of
policy?
reasons why it should be negotiated by the city so that they're not locked into that. If they can show a rate of return greater than that, they should ask for that. If you lock in an amount, then it's not looked at as, what is the proper word there? You don't want to fix them.
Usury or no?
Yeah, it could open the city up for some issues if you lock a rate in.
He's talking about
Oh, okay.
interest.
If the interest
I'm
rate
sorry.
paid is 6%, I just don't know that that makes sense to lock that in the charter language.
I was mistaken.
You're good, I got what you
Different
meant.
topic.
I was on a different topic. I was thinking of return on equity.
I don't know the answer, I just was curious. That seems like a very specific amount to have in a document that may not change for a while.
So we didn't weigh in on that.
We didn't
but
weigh in on
We see,
that.
we see your point.
We see, yes.
Do you have suggestions?
Yeah, if I can indulge our assistant general manager, it's her area. She'll have a suggestion.
Could you repeat the question?
So in the proposal, or in the current charter, it states that in the issue about warrants issued, there's no money for payment. The board shall, upon presentation of the warrant, stamp the date of presentation on the face of the warrant, together with a statement that the warrant will bear interest thereafter at the rate of 6% per year. So it's spelling out an interest rate that's being paid that's not subject to change ever.
The focus is on the 6%.
The 6%.
right?
I just,
Should
if
we
it's
put
not
that-
of issue, that's fine. I just think that's strange language.
I don't know where that interest rate came from. We could review that, but
Has-
Fine with that. If they want to bring it back.
How often does this happen? Like, never?
Oh, we do not have an objection.
To the six.
Well, how often does this happen? That, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I don't, and 6% is
Yeah.
not bad, right?
No, it's not bad. I just,
So we'll just leave it.
okay.
Okay.
Just asking the questions.
Okay, on point 6, point 3, as the proposed amendment, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. Point 4, the request is to strike that language. Is there any questions or concerns? I mean, I have a question. Since council did point one by a resolution or by an ordinance, if they would want to in the future change that, would striking this prevent them from doing it? I mean, this is basically saying.
We don't have an objection to that.
Leaving it in.
Leaving it in?
Yep.
Okay.
No.
Rather leave it in, so authority stays. So the motion would be to adopt point 4 as it currently exists in the charter.
So moved.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, passes. Mr. Peffley, you raised an interesting question about the return on investment. I don't see any language in here about that.
It's negotiated. It's the contract can be varied lengths. The last few contracts have been 1 year. The mayor and the commissioners negotiate, usually I'm the intermediate on that, on a fair return, since the city owns the Board of Water and Light, and they set that. And it's been, was last year either 6 or 6.1, I can't remember, there's a 0.1 in there. And they were doing 1 years. I can remember back when we did 4 years, but after the mayor looks at what he feels is appropriate, and I'm sure I know he consults with his financial team. They talk to us, and I take it to the commission and see, how it shakes out, and then the commission and the council, the mayor sends it to the council for approval. So that's how the process works right now.
Right, that's my concern is right now, and I don't see anything in the charter that requires a return on investment. And I know when I was on council, that was a huge issue, Joan, I think, and Jody, you, I'm sure, recall. I noticed and I don't have it here, but I read through the model Charter 4 that you presented to us.
Mm-hmm.
It did have a section in there referencing the return on investment. Commissioner Washington.
I was actually going to ask about the return on investment because there is nothing. I really think it's important that we have something in here because we don't want it to, I mean, you won't be here forever.
I don't know about that.
We don't want
I think he's going to be there.
We just don't want it to go away. I just think it should be somewhere in the charter.
Just a reference, the process.
Just it's not generic.
I mean,
I would, I wouldn't lock yourself into a number,
No,
but a generic
not-
clause.
don't wanna do
because
that.
I assure you, if the mayor suggests something and we say no, there'll be different leadership. But if you put it into the charter, that's reasonable return or negotiate return, something like that.
well, why don't, we'll put some language together and shoot it over to you, have you take a look at it.
Sure.
And then bring it back.
Yep. No,
Okay.
I don't have any heartburn with that.
Okay, thank you. All right, 5-205 rates, point 1. Anybody have any concerns, questions? Commissioner Boyd.
I'm not sure that the issues that were raised by a member of the public tonight warrant being in the charter, but we do have before us letters and with attachments that talk about rates, and we've heard from constituents tonight about skyrocketing bills from the Board of Water and Light, the issue of smart meters, the issue of higher rates than people can afford. We've heard from the industry that the board is well thought of and provides high-quality service. I guess I'm just wondering where does the truth lie? And I'm wondering, Mr. Peffley, if you could address some of the allegations that have been made about customers not being able to pay their bills. We heard from one of the members of the public about his personal experience in terms of shut-offs and paying bills, et cetera. Can you speak to some of that for us, please? Thank you.
Yes, and I agree it's more of a policy issue, but I am happy to speak to it. I'll start with smart meters. I had that in there. Back in about back in around 2008, kind of a recap, the Board of Water and Light started switching from analog meters to electronic meters. It was just technology training, and we didn't have any negative feedback. I think the customers didn't even know what was going on. With the change, their bills didn't change, or they'd been called, rest assured. And then in 2018, we started adding modules to the electronic meters that were installed, and any new one. All that did, it became a smart meter. Well, that became a hot topic across the country. You heard about it everywhere. So for facts, the module only allows the meter to communicate with the Board of Water and Light system. It can't adjust the meter or do anything. It's just a reading. It can't. So. Nothing would have changed here as far as bills. The amount of electricity, it just can't be modified. So we installed 157,000 smart meters, and we had an opt-out program. If you didn't want the module, we would leave it out. We had to give you an electronic meter because you can't get analog meters anymore. So we would leave the module out. We only had 111 customers opt out of 157,000, so it's a very low opt-out rate. Most utilities do have opt-out. I've seen letters that were just forwarded to me prior to the meeting about companies. I think one's referenced here, Oakland, McCown. Those are DTE customers, and I assure you that those are opt-out questions. They're not removing their smart meters. 80% of the country has smart meters. It's the way that metering is advancing, and there's not any going back. And our meters are ANSI certified. That's a higher standard that a lot of companies don't pay for that guarantees accuracy. And they're also, all meters are FCC approved. So we have customers that have asked us about the meters, and we will, when we check the meter, we document how it was found and how it's left. We have yet to have a meter out of tolerance, which is 0.05%. So when somebody talks to us about the high bills, and I understand the struggles with paying bills, because it's not just the Board of Water and Light going up, it's everything. So it's just adding to it. So we have been communicating in every aspect I can now. If you're a Board of Water and Light customer and you have an electric bill that's over $95, then you need to call us. You have a problem. And now if you have a large house, or if you have electric heat or something, there's going to be outliers. But our average service territory cost is $95, and it's $40 for water. So to put that in perspective, that we will deliver a gallon of water to your tap for 1 penny. There's no hidden cost. There's no tax on top of that delivery. That is the all-in cost. So if you're flushing your toilet, it's 1.7 cents. And so, and a shower is 17 cents. Now, I know all this adds up, but I'm just giving you the facts. So if a customer calls, then we address that call. And, we hear this, and we do. There was an individual speaking here, and we followed up on that, and we're waiting for them, to ask. We said, you need an audit. Your bills are too high. For the dwelling that you tell us that you have here, you need to have us come out. And also, we tell people, we have money available to help you pay. When we opted into this PA 95, which is law, the 88 cents that's put on the bill that's going to go to $1.25, it is the law now. We opted in 1 year prior to it being law, to see if it would open up more funding for our customers, which it did. But now any utility with over 100,000 or 75,000 customers are required to do this. So we have done that. And right now, the problem that we're having is that you collect about $1.1 million from that service charge on the meter annually, and that goes to the different, the state of Michigan collects that money, and they refund that to the different agencies that help our customers. But by opting in, it opened us up to another $1.2 million in federal and state funding that you weren't eligible for if you didn't opt in. The problem we're having, there's almost $1 million that nobody's asking for. We don't know how to there's an audit. They're doing an audit of that right now, and we're looking at the raw numbers as we start. There's so much money left on the table. If the customers would just call us and we push it out, there's funding available. To leave that money uncollected, it's going to go somewhere else. It doesn't go into any type of Board of Water and Light account. It's in the agency's account, and other entities, it'll get distributed out. So it's a real problem that we've just seen, because $1 million in funding for the area would keep a lot of power on. And so I'm just kind of letting you know that there's help out there. But a lot of times, I looked at one the other day because, we stay involved with this. The individual was turned off 12 times in a year and asked, we have funding. I don't need your help. I don't need your money. I don't know what we can do. And when somebody says they have a $9,000 bill, they need to call us. And, we will go out free of charge to do an audit. We'll take a look at why the energy use is so high. And, I don't know what else to say on it. It's not like we're saying we're out of money, that we can't get you money. We direct them to how to collect the money. We'll help them.
You probably have the same question.
If I could, I have a couple follow-ups, if I could.
Yeah, I might have missed something there.
So the question on smart meters, then
Yes.
the allegation has been made that because of smart meters, people are being charged more than they should be. Are you saying that is wrong?
Absolutely, completely false. And
Okay.
there is 40 public utilities in Michigan. They have an association. There's 8. I'm one of the 8 directors over all 40 of these public utilities. I talked to them to see if any of them were having any experience with overcharging rates, and no. And I also asked them, is any entity taking out electronic or smart meters? And they go, well, what are we going to put in? And but I wanted to follow up on that, so no. And let's take it from a common sense. Like, if the utilities had allegations of overcharging smart meters, don't you think that the MPSC, the government, they would be all over us? We've had 2 comments in 2 to 3 years on smart meters by the same individual, and it's right to come up and talk about it, but we don't have a problem with smart meters. Smart meter is your best friend. You look at that meter and you can see, if you look at that meter and you saw water usage in your house last night, you need to call a plumber. You should show 0 use. That meter will tell you that. And we had 2 open houses on how to read that meter just recently, in case you didn't understand it, or you need some help with the technology, or if you needed help with the bill, because a running toilet can cost hundreds of dollars, plus you have to put sewer on top of that. So we are doing everything we can help those folks, but those meters are very accurate. And I assure you, the government, there's so many regulatory agents, if they got wind the smart meters were overcharging customers, there would be a news story on it.
We had another person tonight mention that the state of Michigan, I think on average, their peak hours are between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m., but that the Board of Water and Light has peak hours between 1 and 8. Can you address that for us, please?
Our peak hours mirror probably 90% of the other utilities. There's a difference between our peak hours, though. When some of the other utilities went to peak hours, they just raised your rates. We raised the rate during peak hours, but we lowered it off peak, and we told customers, some customers don't want to be bothered with this. They want to take and just leave me alone. So we did as close as we could that if you didn't want to monitor your meter and move your time because you shift work or something, your bill changed negligible, under 4 or 5%. But if you wanted to get aggressive with a program, you could move some of that time off peak, and I think it's like 9 cents a kilowatt. But if you use on peak, it's in the 20s. It's very expensive. So our program mirrors every other one. There could be subtleties, but there's not hours of difference in peak. And so we're going to take notes on some of that because I know we'll wrap through the board here, but my full intention is of sending you, okay, here's 5 other utilities that surround, here's how they do it. And peak hours are not charged on holidays or weekends either.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think it's really good, well, good news and bad news to hear that we have $1 million that's not being accessed that could help people. Are we marketing that so that the people who need help and assistance, which we hear from, and I'm sure the city council hears, that they know that this is an option?
We defer, all of them to our call center, and all of our skilled call center folks know of the how to get the folks access to the money. There's a little bit of legwork, but it's not hard, and we'll even work them through that. Now we've got a resource fair coming up on April 1, and anybody comes out, we can access money right then for them, and we advertise those heavily on social media, the TV, to come out, and we've done probably 5 or 6 of those, and that has allowed millions of dollars that was there to be put back to the customer. So our next fair is April 1. And we usually have other entities participate in that. So if you need financial guidance or you have mortgage problems, or sometimes other utilities will come for like gas, and the board leads that effort.
Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you. I'm looking at a sample bill.
Mhm.
And do other utilities include the sewer charge that we have in ours?
Most utilities, water utilities and the sewer are one entity. We are not. The sewer is City of Lansing responsibility. We bill for them for the simplicity for the customer, one-stop shopping. So we don't have any dealings with the operation. We see the water bill. The city tells us what the sewer rate is. We make that and put it on the bill, collect it, send the money to the city.
Yeah. So the city sets the rates for the sewer?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So in this bill, the total bill is $228 with the sewer rates. If we didn't have that, it would be under, obviously. Does that impact, you think, on how people perceive the BWL bill?
It definitely does, but we march in lock-sync with the city. The city owns us, so, you know, I never comment on the sewer rates, and as you said, I hit electric rates and water rates, and I didn't want to be non-transparent because there is sewer on that, but I can't speak to that usage, but I do know if we can keep your water bill low, then your sewer bill will go down with it.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of fees. We all see them. These are all predicated on your submission to the state?
Yes, most of the fees, you know, if you're looking at electric, the PA 95 fees on there, I think it's 88 cents. And it has the usage for on and off peak, and the average usage of a residential customer is 538 kilowatts. So you can look, if you're looking at what you can see where you're at. And I tell most Lansing residents, your usage should be less than that, because 40% of our revenue is from the townships, and they typically use more energy in their residence than the Lansing folks when we break it down. But for simplicity, I just say it's 95 and 40.
Yeah. So one of the things is that we need to, I guess, find out how we could impact those other areas where the water and electricity are impacted in our bills.
Yes.
I don't know how to do that, but that probably is not within your power.
No, it's not. A lot of it are mandated environmental charges, and, but the overall rate is in our power. And so our last rate strategy was more than a typical one for us, but we did not raise rates for 2 of the years during COVID, and we were trying to make up for the cash that went out during COVID because we didn't do turnoffs or a rate increase. So typically, you know, and our rate strategy over 6 years has been less than inflation. I know none of this helps if you're having to pay more, but it's just the fact that we are under inflation and we're being asked to do a lot more when it comes to renewables and collections for different types of fees, and those are all included.
So in general, BWL is regulated by the state and by the city?
No, the rates are set by the commission. Management makes a recommendation, commissioners have a rate hearing, and they solicit input, and then they approve, deny, or modify. It's usually, you know, negotiations on here's what you need, but where you know, what can you get by with? It's a lengthy process, and there's public hearings to solicit input. Typically, there's not much public input. Last time there was about 20 people that spoke, and that is a sign that, you know, a lot of people were unhappy because we gauge on how many people don't come versus how many show up. And so we've been very sensitive to that. You know, we're looking at our out years of minimizing. Our rates are very, very competitive compared to surrounding utilities.
So to finish up, the city council does not have any input on the rates once the Board of Water and Light Board passed them?
Correct, but I assure you that they have input. I mean, there's discussions that take place, and ultimately, if they're the ones that approve the commission. So we, you know, it's true the authority to approve it is the commissioners, but the mayor and the city council are apprised of, you know, where rates are going, and, you know, they definitely speak up on, they have questions. It's typically not a formal meeting, which if they call, we would come. It's usually a phone call to my office.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Commissioner Depp.
So this next one we're working on is rates, right? And so
Yes, sir.
the language states that the board may fix and may fix just and reasonable rates, and other charges that it deems advisable for the service furnished, right? I think one of the resounding things we've heard is that it follows up in the next section by a notice of public hearing and how people can voice that. But this conversation started with us months and months ago, and I remember sitting here, and one of our commissioners was online looking after you were saying that it was posted on social media, and there was nothing posted on social media. I'm concerned about this a little bit and not having some city oversight, because there truly is not. If public comes to your meeting and gives public comment,
yes,
I'm not convinced that is really making a difference. Let's be real, right? This decision is made far in advance of really the public comment. We do that because we feel like that's a nice thing to do. I think that's probably the reality of that. But I have concerns with like this process of this, and that the board just can set those rates without any oversight throughout the city, because you're right, city council does hear about that, and then city council has nothing they can do about it. And so as it comes back, and you'll see this is social media comments and things now, is that it is a public-owned utility, and the public does not feel that they have any rights or say into what actually happens from the commission at this point. And so I am curious how we can build things in that put some other checks and balances to this. Is there a process in which a decision that is done by the commission can be challenged by the city? And right now we can't do that. But this last one is a really good example of I don't think the statement that it was transparent about the hearings and being able to address the commission, I don't think that was really accurate. I think there were things that were done. I don't think it was done in good faith to try and bring people in to hear from the community. I think it was done quietly. But then once it was done, there was just huge outcry, as you've heard, right? This has been going on for 6 months now, and there's absolutely no way someone can get the city to make any sort of adjustment to that. That's my concern with just having the rates set by the commission.
Understood.
Thank you. That brings up a point that I had. I was actually going to bring it up later, and it will actually impact part of a point earlier in Article 5. But what I would like to see is something in the charter for transparency and for public input, where we currently have 3 non-voting commissioners on the Board of Commissioners for the Board of Water and Light. They are only 1-year terms. I think they meet, what do they meet, 6 times a year?
There's 6 committee meetings, and then usually the week after is a board meeting. The work is done in the committee meetings. The the finance and COW meeting are held the same night. They're lengthy meetings. The board meetings is to approve those. Those are generally pretty short.
Okay, so these 3 commissioners have no voting power, and they're only on a year. I mean, the Board of Water and Light, let's face it, what is a $2 billion company? There is so much to being a commissioner to understand, to be able to make decisions with wisdom and experience. What I would like to see when we get into the earlier Article 5, that we actually do away with those 3 non-voting commissioners, and that we put something in here in the charter that states the general manager shall meet with the public and other interested and vested parties quarterly. This way, I agree, 3 minutes at a microphone is nothing. There's no dialogue, they don't respond. This would be a time for the people quarterly to bring their issues forward, to have their questions answered, to have dialogue with the general manager. And I'm adamant about it being the general manager, not an appointee. Because I think that is the way we get our questions answered, and that things can be thoroughly discussed and things that are interesting to the public. So I would like to see that as a matter of transparency and a matter of conversation with the public, so the public truly has input at that time.
Ms. Pebley, do you want to respond to that?
I have no concerns meeting with the public, and Commissioner Dowd, your comments are not falling deaf ears. I am very open on how to communicate on rate strategies. It's not a fun time, and you're right, usually when it's 1 or 2%, nobody comes around. But the last two were catch up, and we'll be going back to that. But whatever suggestions on how we better communicate, different, media's changed, and you're right. I thought it was done on social media, and that sounds like if it was hard. It was hard to find. If not there, whether you asked commissioners to invoke a policy or how you want to do it, you'll get no grief from me. It's something that's necessary to run a utility, and if candid, it probably has more effect on the next year. Because I assure you, I've heard what people said. I've told my staff we're actually going through some budget adjustments. I'm not going through this again, but I think that something long term. If you say, the board shall do this, or this, in transparency, that you'll do this type of communication. You'll have these stakeholder groups. I would be happy to do that, and if you wanted me to meet with stakeholders quarterly, you can put that however you want to put that in there. There's no concerns, none at all.
All right, we'll get some language together on that.
I just want to state that I concur with Commissioner Washington and Commissioner Boyd, especially when it comes down to transparency. I think that's very important. I know that the constituents, that's what they want to see. They want to be actively involved. As far as the elimination of the 3 non-voting members, I'm in favor of that.
Any other comments? Commissioner Boyd.
I too like the idea of a quarterly meeting with the general manager. I guess my question is for our legal staff, and that would be, where would we put such a thing in the charter? You might not be able to answer that question tonight, but I don't know if it goes into section 204 or 205 that we're talking about, or if it should go someplace else in the charter. I'd look for your guidance on that. Thank you.
Commissioner Cooey.
When we get to that, I had proposed some language to kind of add to the next one here in point 2. We just haven't got there yet.
Okay.
And hopefully this will kind of answer some of the questions and concerns that some of our members have.
All right. As to point 1, any more conversation? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Point 2, Commissioner Cooey.
I would like to amend the proposal. And again, reading on point 2, where I put on there that the board shall conduct multiple public hearings, including special day and evening meetings prior to any changes in rates. I would like to change that 30 days to 45 and that 45 days to 60. That way we have multiple time that our constituents can meet on multiple bases. I do believe when they had, again, the big uproar around the last rates that were thing, they only had 1 meeting. And that showed a very minimal amount of people that showed up. Again, people work in the days. If you have an evening meeting or meetings, they can have that time to do that. And then also, too, I would like to change that also multiple announcements about the upcoming meetings through social media, newspaper, news commercials, and what have you, sent out to all aspects of the community. Again, we're looking for that transparency part. And again, if they know those are coming up in a longer period of time coming up, and then also multiple meetings, not just 1 or 2, and also different shifts, that should be able to at least catch that.
So the changes that you're proposing, point 2, just deals with the rate hearings, the rate structure. Okay, so I think Commissioner Washington was quarterly.
I was looking for quarterly public meetings with stakeholders for all issues.
Okay. Why don't we get some language together on that, and we can bring it back for your consideration. Okay, would you please? Good. That'd be fine. Then I'll pass it along. Commissioner Anderson.
I would just make one recommendation as far as them publishing the information. I would like for that language to be in alignment with our definition of publish. And we had selected before, which I would say we would swap out city for board, but by posting to the city's website and by any means determined by the city to achieve widespread dissemination to the general public, having that language in there instead of listing out each one.
I think it's kind of how we got to that. So, okay, great. Kristen's got it. So we'll come back to point 2 at a later date. Okay, 5-206, it's a collection hearing process, point 1. Anybody have any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, passes. Point 2. Any questions on that?
I don't know.
Commissioner Dowd.
Sorry, I just
No,
started
that's okay.
talking. I don't know this changes in the charter at all, but one of the things that made me think about, you mentioned if people call in and there's this money that is there, we need them to call in and ask for it. And so in here, it's talking about if a person fails or refuses to pay their bill, the delinquency still owed. I wonder if there's an approach right now that's proactive. So if somebody is delinquent and they're approaching a shutoff, are we reaching out to those folks? I will tell you, I was very impressed. Most recently in my office, I had 2 letters from Board of Water and Light, and I was like, what is this? And our credit cards had changed, and it was a past due notice. And I was like, it's on auto pay. That communication was great because I was then paid within like 6 days past the due date. I'm curious, though, if we're sending out communication to folks who are getting ready for a shutoff, and we're telling them there is money. These are the steps we need you to do, as opposed to waiting for them to ask us. Because then we get to this point where now we have collection of money owed and stuff. And if we can prevent that, that seems to be much more logical sense.
We absolutely do. Okay. We send the notices out, and we call them, try to get them on the phone, and say, listen, and if you're over 65 and didn't tell us, then you have a shut-off moratorium. Or if you're at a certain income level, and sometimes it's hard for people to admit that on the phone, but if it's that or have your power turned off, it puts them in a different class that delays shut-offs. But yeah, we're very proactive on that because it's free money. And so, yeah, we are, but I'm not done trying to figure it out because there shouldn't be any money left over.
Commissioner Dowd, I just want to point out that you admitted twice that you were in default to the city. Yeah, and under our rules.
We just passed the rule.
Your job could be forfeited, so just get them paid.
Should we take a vote?
Yes.
Yeah.
One was water, one was light. You're right.
Oh. Okay. So point 2. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Anderson.
Are those things that you just listed as far as shutoffs, is that listed on the actual shutoff notice?
I'm not sure,
Okay.
But I do know that we speak in person with them, we try to contact them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to review what the shut-off notice says. And there's more than one that goes out. One is a late notice, so it's kind of a reminder, hey, did you forget? And next is a shut-off, but I can have that question answered right now. Our shut-off, our guru is back there.
Okay, thank you.
You should shut off. You have a shut off guru. That's a problem. Don't call.
It is listed on there, she said.
Thank you.
Should be targeting.
Yes.
Thank you for letting me.
Your name, please.
Yes.
And your phone number. Yeah. Commissioner Cooey.
Also, a point of clarification, that low income where they have that moratorium where it doesn't get shut off, and also anyone over 65 and over, that was passed by the state. Am I correct?
That's a state law, yes, sir. We follow their guidelines.
Right.
Other questions, comments? Commissioner Washington.
Mr. Pavlik, could you explain to me when Mr. Shuck stated that his check was in the box, but nobody took it out and his power was shut off? Why was he charged to turn it back on?
We'd have to look because the box is emptied every day. I'm not saying that a check couldn't, not on the weekends, but I can't say that a check didn't get stuck in there. And to hear it twice, our union business manager perfect. We're not perfect, but that would need explanation, and we're happy to reach out and talk and see what happened, because first of all, a check like that wouldn't lead right to a shut-off. You know, there's a process to follow, and you know, that we're very diligent on following that process. There'd be phone call. The individual would get a phone call, and depending on what the rearage, well, if it was a current or rearage, but no, I took some notes to see if we can look back at this, because we track everything. Every phone, when our call center was talking, every phone call is recorded, so that, you know, we can go back if there's a dispute or if there's misunderstanding and make sure we make it right, because we're not heavy-handed like that. When your utility unfortunately gets shut off, you know, you charge a deposit, but you don't have to pay that deposit to get turned back on. We turn you on, you know, pretty much immediately, and then we work with you. Technically, your deposit is due the next billing cycle. But if you can't pay it, they'll put you on payment plans. It's not a good business model to shut your customers off. Right. And so, and then it was, there was amendment made, or a policy change made now, that it used to be you had to go a year without a late payment to get your policy back. We've actually erred to decide that you just have to go a year without being turned off. And that is very rare in the utility industry, I can tell you right now.
Okay.
But we think it's appropriate.
Yeah. I hope you just cleared up with him. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, on point 2, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, passes. Point 3, this is dealing with the dispute and hearing procedures. The proposal, as you can see, strikes part of that procedure, and basically the board is going to establish the procedure. You have done that. Are you looking to change that procedure, or? Okay. The way I looked at the procedure, you gave us a copy of it. It appears to kind of be in line with the language that currently is there. Why do you want to strike it?
I suggested this change to make it more in line with the city's similar sort of dispute resolution procedure.
Okay.
It doesn't have all this extraneous
Well, then there
extra
should-
language to it.
Should there be some sort of reference in there to, when you say to align it to the city's process, should there be a reference to another section of the charter that?
Or say consistent with the practices of the city regarding dispute resolution.
Okay, do we know what section that is?
I don't. I
8
would want
something?
to make sure that
I think it's in
it was similar.
Article 8. I mean, if that's what you're trying to accomplish, I would like to put down what the reference to the section that the city's required to follow.
Yes, in my letter, or in the general manager's letter, we cited ordinance 8-304.3.
304.3.
Or is that a charter?
Oh, okay. Do we know what the city has in that process? And if that was done by ordinance? It doesn't say here that they would do it by ordinance, but I would assume that there might be.
I did not see any ordinance on a process for Board of Water and Light. The only thing I saw referenced as an ordinance was the allowance of how the checks were signed,
Okay.
which we talked about earlier. So, and when I'm looking at Charter 8-304.3, it states the city shall establish procedure for the resolution of disputes between the city and any of its customers concerning public utility services other than electric, water, and steam services. So I don't think we could necessarily refer back to this section. If there's another section of the ordinance I missed, I'm willing to look at it.
Well, do you know, have you seen any of the established procedures
So there's not a grant.
that the city has adopted for this dispute resolution? Did you come across any of that? I don't know if you've looked for it.
The only ones I looked for were the regulations that the BWL currently has for its disputes for water.
Okay.
And light bills, which does comply with what the city charter currently requires for the BWL. One thing I think the board needs to look at is whether to maintain the independent hearing structure. If you get rid of this here,
Okay.
it could allow the board to amend its procedure to have something other than an independent individual review. There would still have to be some process to review for due process if there's a challenge, but it would give the Board of Water and Light more ability to change their process.
Okay. Why don't we delve into this a little bit more, have a little more research done on it. We'll come back to that.
Just for clarification, I think it's,
Sure.
It's just it's a misquote there too, or the citation's wrong to an ordinance. It's the charter.
Yeah, right.
It's the references to the
Okay.
charter. And the charter's, as far as the city's procedure, is very simple, very straightforward. So this was just trying to
Okay.
align closer with that.
All right, moving on to 5-207, sale or exchange of facilities. Tabling point 3. Do we need to be concerned, excuse me, with what we just did on,
Yes.
sorry, 5-201 point, or 5203.3?
So they're a little bit different. So if you look at 5203.3, it's giving the board the ability to sell real property and interests in real property not needed for the operation of Board and Water and Light, versus what we've got for 5-207, which is are needed to continue. In short, if you get rid of infrastructure that's needed to continue, you'd functionally be like majorly changing the Board of Water Light or potentially getting rid of the utility. And so this is stating if this is a necessary aspect or asset of the board, it has to be approved by the voters.
Okay, so you'd recommend leave it as is?
Well, I mean, it's up to you to decide. I'm pointing out, I think, the structural differences between the two sections. But this does create a pretty high hurdle for the board to actually get rid of necessary assets.
Discussion? Comments? Okay, leaving it as is. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes. Well, it's only 7:30 by the council's
I have one question, if permissible,
Yeah.
Chair. I understand all of the conversations around the transparency on the rate strategy, zero heartburn with it, but there was another resolution where GM was to meet quarterly with the public, and that was tied to the 3 non-voting commissioners. Is that passed or not? I'm trying to, I'm lost.
Bringing it
Excuse
back.
me, we're going to bring back the
Oh,
language
okay.
on the meetings
All
and
right.
everything. I do want to have a bit of a conversation on the 3 non-voting members, and this is found in section 5-103.12. It establishes 3 non-voting members, 2 have 4-year terms, and 1 has a 1-year term. This morning I was reading the East Lansing Info news article about what East Lansing Council has been up to. And one of the things that they have pointed to, they were reviewing their goals, their upcoming goals. And one of it is they want to start burying their utility lines, and they're looking for a funding source. And in it, it says, one of the council members talks about how are we going to get that money. And he goes, I don't think we would plan to build our own plants. What we would basically be doing is establishing a regulatory authority that would buy wholesale power, and then the city of East Lansing would then retail it to their residents and perhaps beyond. So, I mean, what concerns me is if the city of East Lansing is actually considering separating itself from the Board of Water and Light, creating their own regulatory authority that would sell electricity that we currently provide, and they're a sitting member on this board, and they have access to all of the sensitive information the Board of Water and Light would get or would provide to board members. They would have all of the detail about what the long-term plans are and everything else, and I think would put the Board of Water and Light in a very disadvantaged position moving forward. You know, I don't know if they're continuing the discussion. They made no decision. They turned it over to the city manager to look how to best, you know, look at how to create a electricity utility, as they said. So, you know, this is a political issue. I really support regionalism, but regionalism is a two-way street. And I see that we have President Cost here from Lansing City Council. This may be an issue he may want to talk to his counterparts about in the city of East Lansing. But I tell you up here, my view is, my thought, and I didn't think this way until this morning, I support eliminating that section and getting rid of these positions only because, and I understand there's been some other issues with another one of these members. I mean, I don't want to knee-jerk on that. Maybe we should get some more information. But I think this is really serious. I don't know what the board thinks about it. I'd like to hear from the board in terms of their thoughts on this, but I certainly wouldn't feel comfortable sitting on that board, knowing what's going on, and having another member sitting right next to me, kind of undermining everything it is that we're trying to do. So, Madam Vice Chair.
Yes, since we're finished with that section, I would like to add a section 5-208 that deals with training and education. When we talk about the Board of Commission, this is a very unique advisory board. Therefore, I think they should have some type of background, financial, engineering, utility experience. I have known someone who was on the board that didn't have that background. And when you talk about term limits, this is a type of board that you don't learn everything in your first term. You know what I mean? So they may need more time to learn their job. I remember in the state, I worked for the state for the legislature for several years, and when they came in with term limits, it was very difficult for legislators to get their work through because they're learning the job the first 2 years, and then they're building those relationships after that. So I think when we consider the board compensation, not the compensation, but how it's run, how the appointments are done, we really have to look at who's sitting on these boards. That's my comment on that.
Well, I would think, you know, in terms of the training proposal
Yes,
and
yes.
everything like that, I think when we get to the boards, the rest of them,
Yes.
just in that general category, that should be a provision that would be for all boards and commissions.
Exactly, and one of the trainings that I'm aware of, and they have other trainings, but like through, let's see where we're going here. I did have the training, mandatory training, I should be in there, by the American Public Power Association annually, the governance training, and the Michigan Municipal Electric Association annually. And then the BWL does have regular training such as sexual harassment, DEI, other things. So I think that's very important that we enforce that with all boards and commissions.
Commissioner Lopez.
Well, thank you for answering the questions and giving us some information. My thought is we're talking to you right now. You're the current manager. But this charter is supposed to outlive all of us, in a way. So I'm wondering if we're not looking ahead, for example, the city population of Lansing versus the outer rim of Lansing. And in 10 years, for example, where will BWL be? Where will the city of Lansing be? And the things that we're talking about, are they going to be, you know, things that will help the city grow?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just reflecting on that right now it's you, tomorrow, who knows? And the council makeup will be different. And so are we putting things in the charter that are going to be helpful to city council people in the future and to BWL? Where are the checks and balances? And I don't know that we're doing that a lot, or maybe we are, I'm just not seeing them. But I think we need to step aside and think forward rather than where we're now. And some of these things we talked about are happening now. I don't know if they'll be good 10 years from now. I just want to make that statement. Maybe you can shed some light, you know, if you have made studies going forward and what kind of energy is going to be more, could it be wind, could it be, you know, nuclear, you know, I don't know. But
Sure. Happy to, yeah, our strategic plan, which the new one is coming in, there's a 5-year document that looks forward to see where the board is going. We also look at the potential of new customers that are looking to locate in an area, what energy is going to be required. But what used to be a stable outlook, I get up in the morning to see what changed in Washington last night when I was sleeping, and
for sure.
that's problematic. We have multi-million-dollar wind projects that we're trying to get off the ground, and then you have a Washington administration says, that, excuse my language, the quote was "wind sucks." You can't get things licensed that way. Nobody, no bank, no bonding. They're going, well, I'm not getting sideways here. So it is making near-term tough to achieve goals. The federal government can reduce the goals all that they want, but the bottom line is we have to comply with state law. And state law is 50% renewable energy by 2030 and 60% by 2035. I think I said that right. So bottom line is we had a vision out 10, 20 years, and we're still trying to stay on it, but things are changing faster than I've ever seen them. But that's what the administration, we have a strategic planning department now. That's an entire standalone department. They look at these things, say, how do we get here? How do we stay in compliance? How do we continue to attract new customers? Because the board is key. The first call that a customer makes coming to Lansing is the Board of Water and Light, because energy cost is always usually their highest next to employee labor cost. So, the LG plant is exact, a great replica. That industry is going to change the Lansing area. It's been delayed a little bit coming on, but I assure you the contracts they have now in place are better than the previous ones. So, but we have to figure out how to make sure that we can feed the next one that's already calling us and how we do that. So, yeah, we do look at that, and all that growth, it brings employees and people that work there that we want to live in the city of Lansing and to help the neighborhoods. It increases the payment on no taxes. That's up to like 27 million from 17 not too many years ago. So there is a concrete strategy. Now, it's going to change a lot because of rules and changes coming out of Washington, but we stand ready to figure that out.
Yeah.
But it's not near as easy as it was 6 months ago.
Yeah, one of the results is that our rates may go up higher.
We've got a plan for that. I'm not, rest assured, where we need to be. Yeah. And you're right, Commissioner, because we borrowed $320 million to put solar and wind in, and the payments coming due, and it's given some of our residents heartburn that it's, we didn't know it was going to be that much, but we have that funded. As we look forward, we have a plan. Our plan, and it's coming to fruition as soon as LG come on, is to build our revenue off new customers, not the back of our existing customers. So, our model is to have our rates double digits under our nearest competitor, and, we've been there for a long time. We're a little tighter now than they want to be, but they have rate pending strategies too, and we're ahead of everybody else, so it's costing a little bit of money. The required renewable goal right now is 15%. We're at 21. We're ahead of that, but that doesn't come free, and that's what we're hearing right now. But we're sensitive to, 100% renewable versus our customers. If you can't pay your bill, you're not interested in renewable energy. You're trying to keep your lights on. So we're trying to balance that, and I'm very sensitive to that and in tune to that, what our public can and can't afford.
Okay. Want to thank you all for coming down and taking our questions. I think it's been very helpful in terms of our process. Want to thank everybody that has come here tonight to address this issue. I think we'll just take a short recess for maybe 5 minutes, and we'll allow everybody to clear out, unless you want to stay and hear more about our charter. It's so much fun. So we'll recess for 5 minutes. Please. Okay. We are going to go to Article 2, the line-by-line review. Our attorney has given us a overview or an opinion for the change that is being, two changes actually, they're being contemplated. One is in Article 3-102.6, and the other is in 2-104. So I'll let you take it away, and we'll go through that.
So the board had, the commission had previously looked at some language about changing the compensation of the city council members to include at least part a per diem. But part of that discussion was also a concern about the committee assignments and making sure that assignments are done fairly. And so we went back and looked at whether there are other charters, what are other charters' treatments in terms of, do they regulate or provide guidance on assignment to standing committees? We could not find any that specifically guide how standing committee, number or allocation of who gets on a standing committee for the city council. We did provide some sort of overview on some of the language here. So a couple things that you can consider doing if you want to change the current provision of the city charter is you could specifically make the council president's assignments to the standing committees subject to approval by a majority of the council members present, so that they can make the assignment, but the council members also have to sort of approve those assignments. I think the theory being, if they're unfair, I would hope someone would sort of raise their hand. The other thing you could consider doing too, in order, you can put in language that says something like, the board president or the council president shall, assign equitably or equally, but the concern there is there's a level of subjectivity there that it'd be really hard to sort of enforce. So if you really wanted enforcing language, what we did was we crafted, I guess, negative language. So putting a maximum of the number of committees that an individual council member can be on. And the language we stuck with was council members may serve on no more than 4 standing committees at one time. Again, the idea being that you can't necessarily overload one member over another. The concern with this type of language would be it could potentially limit the amount of standing committees that the council can have, because there's only, and remember, we're down to 7 now, there's only so many people to go around. And so, currently with 7 members and the 7 current standing committees, that divides out equally into 3 assignments each. So if you go changing too much more, you may not have enough bodies to fill standing committees. So we did draft some language for your consideration on if you wanted to provide, I guess, more enforceable guidance or ability to kind of have the charter regulate how the council member or how the council president makes these standing committee assignments for you to discuss.
So if I can just draw everybody's attention to page 3 of the opinion letter, that's the amendments that are being presented to us. I believe the option is to do nothing and leave it as is, or to make either both of these amendments, pass both amendments, or only one, whatever the body wants to do. Commissioner Washington.
This may be nothing, but, excuse me, it says up in here that Robert's Rules describes blah, blah, blah. Council doesn't go by Robert's Rules. They go by Mason. I never understood why we don't go by Roberts, but.
When everybody else goes by Masons, right?
No, everybody else goes by Roberts.
Oh, and we're Masons then. Yeah.
Those were actually made for large legislative bodies, and so I never understood why they do Mason. I think we should change it.
Commissioner Boyd.
You're right, because at our first meeting, we talked about what rules we were going to follow, and I remember that discussion. For the record, I am opposed to the per diem issue for city council members. I'm not quite sure why we went down this path. I think it was partially a reason to encourage people to participate if they were elected. We have, evidently, there are people who don't show up. I don't know if that's true or not. I think there are probably other better ways to deal with it. But at the bottom line is, I don't support per diem, and so I will be voting against this whenever it comes up, and I probably won't speak to it again, but just so you know where I stand, thank you.
Madam Vice Chair.
And the reason I brought up the per diem issue is because it's about accountability. You're elected to do a job, and looking at the attendance record of some city councilmen, past and present, they're not showing up to do their job. So why should you receive a salary and you're not doing your job? It was a question of whether or not it should be per diem per day, or should they do committee meeting. A part of your job as elected official is to show up. You shouldn't have the right not to show up and have unexcused absences for no reason. That was my concern about that. And like us, if we don't show up, we don't get paid.
I agree with you on that. I think it is an accountability issue, and I think people who run for office should know going into it what is going to be expected of them, and they should be participating. I just don't think per diem is the answer. And I think someone said here they didn't approve of term limits. If people aren't showing up for work, then I think we have elections and people can be voted out of office. Thank you.
Other comments? Okay, anybody? Oh, Commissioner Washington.
I will say, they have recently started posting attendance, but we did have a council member that didn't show up to a committee for a year. More than once. Well,
It was.
I wasn't going to say who. And
I'm surprised that councilperson had time to write a letter to us about one of the issues before us.
And there have been times that people have asked to only be on one committee, thus putting the burden on everybody else. There have been council people where different entities have asked, please don't send them back to us because of their inappropriate behavior during meetings. There are all kinds of reasons, so I don't think it's something that we want to just put out that everybody has to be on the same amount of committees. There's a reason. If somebody's not put on many committees, there's a reason. And I don't think that the public has to know all of those reasons necessarily, but I'm only saying that to say there needs to be something, because for somebody to not show up for a year and say, well, I didn't even know I was on that committee, that's outrageous. And for people to behave so poorly that entities are asking, please don't send them back, that's a problem. So I don't know how we can deal with that. Maybe you'll have some ideas. I don't know, but something needs to be done.
Other comments? Commissioner Lopez.
Yeah, I'm not too sold on per diem either. I think we need to look at various ways of doing this. Maybe we just look at city council meetings and divide the meetings by whatever the annual salary is. And if they don't show up on an excuse, do that. I'm just talking out loud, but I'm not sold on per diems yet.
Other comments? Commissioner Dowd?
I think in response to that, I think this is kind of where we've landed at this point. And to look at other ideas, I think this was the idea that we've spent a lot of time kind of researching now. So is the option now whether we vote on do a per diem or not, or where are we at?
I think I'd like to see a show of hands indicating who supports per diems and who doesn't. If there's not the support here, then.
What I said is not that I don't support it, I'm just not sold on it, entirely. I think there's more
What
discussion.
would you sell, or what do you need to get it over the finish
Well-
line?
Well, it goes back to what Commissioner Washington said. If you had an even Steven number of meetings that everybody was going to make, you can do just the math and do that. But you don't. The numbers don't add up for whatever reason. Unless by charter we mandate the council president to do an even number of appointments. That would be something different, right? But that's what I'm saying, there's things that maybe don't add up, and that's where I'm at right now.
Madam Vice Chair.
And my concern is everyone doesn't have the skill set to sit on a specific committee, so I understand that the council president would have that discernment to make that decision. But if a council person is asking to be on a committee and then they're not allowed to be on that committee, whether it's personal or not, don't know. But I'm not looking at the committees themselves for per diem. I'm looking at really the attendance for committee of the whole and for the council meetings. Because like I said before, if you have a job You have to show up. If I'm called in by my boss to attend a late night meeting, I had to attend that board meeting. It wasn't an option, oh, I'm not getting paid for that. It was a part of my job. So that's how you should be looking at it as an elected official. You are elected to do a job. Show up and do your job.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I'm.
Go ahead, Commissioner Lopez.
Just, you just mentioned two meetings that in your mind would be the ones that would count.
Yes.
The regular meeting and the committee of the whole.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, that, if we work on that, you know, we don't have all this other
Yeah, we don't need to.
regular stuff.
With the committees.
Yeah, okay.
Then he can appoint whoever he wants.
Commissioner Bauer.
If we're sharing how we feel, I don't support per diem. I support the way we do it now, a set amount. I think it's complicated. I'm not sure it always even measures the value. We all know people who just sit in meetings and do nothing and really don't add value to a group or a process. I'm concerned that there is a sense that people aren't pulling their weight. And I think that the city council really needs to look at their own, maybe some rules, and I don't even know how they could, what kinds of things that they could come up with, but regulate themselves. So, yeah, I do not support the per diem.
Commissioner Boyd.
I'd just be curious to know what the city council has done to try to encourage people to attend meetings if they're not attending. I don't know that I haven't seen any articles in the paper that they've been chastised publicly or that the council has tried to do anything. I think this is a problem in search of a solution or a solution in search of a problem. I'm not sure what it is.
Well, I was just going through the charter, I thought there was a provision in there that talks about the number 60 meetings that are missed, that is grounds for forfeiture of office. That is a high number.
That's a very high number.
I mean, you know, we could, you could, but again, I mean, say we make it 5.
Yeah.
Unexcused absences, or 3, whatever it is you want. But at the end of the day, council's going to have to enforce that. And to have what happened with their current council member that missed a whole entire year of committee meetings. And, you know, I see now that that council member has been reduced in number of standing committees. I mean, basically not doing much, but getting a full paycheck. You know, that's disturbing. And I agree with Commissioner Boyd that, you know, nothing's been called out at all. I mean, some people know about it, most people don't. Commissioner Washington.
Thank you. In the council's defense, they have started posting attendance records, and I think that's a great step forward because it's important. It's almost more important you attend a committee meeting than a council meeting. The work is done in the committees. And if one person doesn't show up, or God forbid somebody's sick and they just haven't shown up for a year, you don't have quorum. You can't get any of the committee work done. What comes to the council meeting is what was done in committee. That's where the work is done. And so I'm not in favor of just council and committee of the whole being considered, because that is where you just go, yay, nay, the work's been done. So I don't know how to address it. Attendance records are posted now, but something has to be done. This particular council person is not the only one that's ever done this. There have been several. And maybe it is something council has to work out in their council rules and their policies, but something has to be done, and 60 is far too many. They only have 26 council meetings, for crying out loud. You can miss every one of them. So I think it's something that needs to be addressed. How we address it, I'm not sure.
Okay. Commissioner Anderson.
So long ago. I am in favor of per diems. I mean, my suggestion was to maybe move to just the main city council meetings for per diem, but I understand Commissioner Washington's point too. I don't have like a super strong stance either way, because I do feel like it gets really muddy and there's a lot to consider there. But in general, I am in favor of per diem.
Commissioner Kui. Okay. Anybody else?
Just to clarify your discussion, the section you were referencing is 2-301, and it's 60 consecutive days or more.
Oh.
So, but if you have a council member missing committee meetings but attending regular meetings, that wouldn't apply. So it'd be left to, whether that amounts to some other rule violation or something like that.
Commissioner Kui.
But point of clarification, that would be if the person was not sick. If we have someone on council member say I was going through chemotherapy or something like that, wouldn't they be covered under FMLA or what have you like that? So it would be have something other than a illness.
Yeah, that would be an excused absence.
Well, it says 60 consecutive days or more, the council shall vote to excuse or not to excuse.
Okay, all right.
The inability at
Clarification
each
on it.
council meeting. So, Madam Vice
Yes, last comment. I was concerned about the unexcused absences as well. I mean, things happen. We all have family, life commitments, things come up and stuff like that. But as a paid member of a council, if you can't even have a courtesy to call and say, I will not be present, I have a problem with that.
Okay, so what we have in front of us, 3-102.6, there's some recommended amendments, changes, actually recommendations not to do anything. And then after we move off this, we're going to go back to Article 2-104, and that's where the compensation piece comes in that will deal specifically with the idea of doing per diem payments or compensation. So at this point, I'm trying to figure out where everybody wants to go. If we're not going to go down this road, we keep investing a lot of time and energy into it, and we've got so much other stuff to do. I'd rather call it a wrap, unless we take one more meeting. I want people to really think about what's the alternative then in terms of, if you're trying to go after, people that aren't performing, how do we do that? And if the per diem pay isn't going to force that issue in the sense that people have to come to work to get paid, what other way is there to do it? And again, you just look at what happened here, and council is doing something now about it. But back when it happened, nothing was done. So, Commissioner Boyd.
If you're going to give us another week or two to look at this, then I want to know, I would like to see what the council's rules are, what the council has been doing. I'd like a little bit more information.
Okay.
Because I don't have it. And I can tell you that I have personal experience with this particular council person not showing up and not responding to emails and not helping his constituent or their constituents, let's not even be specific with gender, their constituents. And it annoyed me to the point that I said that council person needs to be told, do not run for reelection because you will not be elected. So I have had personal experience, and I'd be happy to share it with any of you off record. But if we're going to have more time to think about this, I want to know what the council has done.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Washington.
Just really quickly, and this is probably more for the attorney, would it be prohibited to maybe not do per diem, but put something in there that for any unexcused absence, there will be a deduction of $50 or whatever it is, a percentage? I wonder if that would maybe not be quite so messy, but there would still be something in there that hits the pocketbook.
But if the council doesn't have rules in place, I can call in for an excused absence 20 times if there's no penalty. It's about the council reinforcing the rules. We have to see the rules. A council president, Cost, did share an published article recently about attendance in 2024. But that gets into the weeds, I think, where you're saying whether it's excused or not, because if everybody calls in for an excused absence, what do? You don't have quorum. We could all call in excused.
So let's do this. We'll
Think about
bring this issue back up in 2 weeks to give people enough time to get to, and then we'll get that information out in terms of council rules and 2. We meet next week, and then, yeah. that would have been that would have been an unexcused absence. So there you go. Yes, Commissioner.
And may I, if there's a possibility, I know we've got Ryan in the audience here. I'd love to hear from any council folks, like if there is any suggestions or feedback on what we're discussing now. Because if there is something that you already kind of have in your mind of like, we could put this into play and fix this right now without even going down this road, that'd be helpful too. So we already are seeing some things happen. I know that there's already policies and procedures within the council. And if there's something that's there that could address this without changing charter language, that could be an option too. So not to put that on you, but if you have any feedback, we'll take it.
All right. Okay, so at this point, we will conclude any discussions on Article 3 and 2 or 2 and 3. And it's only 10 after 8. So people want to get into Article 4?
No.
What? I'm sorry, yeah.
I will stay, but I have a very sick mother at home and I'm watching for someone watching.
And what is it
Okay.
for next week? Because we can clean this up next week.
All right, so next week we have, hopefully, I haven't heard back, we're going to have a presentation by Public Service, talk about the sustainability, the possibility of a sustainability department or office of sustainability, and then we'll just move on down we'll start with Article 4 and then get into Article 5. Okay, and then the meeting after that, we're going to have the internal auditor of the city council in, and we'll go over that section of the charter and kind of get an update from where we were with Councilmember Spatafor and our understanding of what was going on with that. Commissioner Boyd.
So just to be clear, so we're going to continue with Article 5 next week?
We will
We'll
start
talk
with,
about the general boards and commissions and that,
yeah,
all those
we'll
issues.
start with the cleanup of Article 4,
Uh-huh.
and then we'll get into
Thank
Article 5, which is
Thank you.
boards and commissions. Next week, that's what we'll start. And then the following week, we'll probably get into Article 5 again some more, and got to get it moved down. We're getting our back up against the wall here. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we will move into public comment.
Okay, we have still with us Linda Appling, followed by Loretta Stanaway. Thank you for your patience.
This one, yeah. Who told me to use my dishwasher?
Hello. What I wanted to talk about initially is the right to counsel by people who are being evicted from their homes. I would like to say that the right to counsel for people being evicted from the city in terms of Lansing, that they should be eligible to receive legal representation paid for by the city of Lansing. This is not unusual. There is a provision in the city of Detroit where such individuals are entitled to legal representation. And that particular section is 22-10. I would like to also state that recognizing that providing a right to counsel to covered individuals, it serves a public purpose, including promoting the public health, safety, general welfare, security, prosperity, and contentment of all residents of the city. All covered individuals who face eviction proceedings in housing or related administrative proceedings which threaten the occupancy of their homes should be afforded a right to legal representation by counsel in such proceedings. providing the right to counsel in any proceeding that threatens the occupancy of the occupant, ameliorates the threat of economic impact and to public safety, not only for the individual so represented, but for the entire city. Too often, we have too many people wandering around in this city, and we need to start taking necessary steps to eliminate this particular problem. And one of the ways to do that is to provide legal representation to those individuals who simply cannot afford legal representation in terms of that. And I would ask that you include this particular provision in any revision that you make. I would also like to talk about the Board of Water and Light, and I've stated this before. I myself am extremely pissed off at the Board of Water and Light. I am tired of this artificial time frame in terms of what I have to pay a higher rate than other individuals in terms of that. My God, what do they expect me to do? Go out and die between the hours of 1 and 4 o'clock or 1 and 7 o'clock? What am I supposed to do? I'm retired. You have a lot of people in this city that are retired. Why should we have to pay a higher rate? And frankly, I am myself fed up with that type of discrimination. And to me, it is discrimination based upon age, because you have the people that have. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll continue at your next meeting.
Thank you. Next is Loretta Stanaway and then Randy Dykeheis.
Okay, a couple of brief things. One easy answer for the issue with Board of Water and Light notifications to people who aren't current on their bills is that every single month, every single bill to every single person paying a Board of Water and Light bill should and could contain the information saying essentially, if you are having trouble with your bill, here are the numbers of the places you can call and get assistance. And they have money to distribute, but you have to make that step to call. So here's the information. Second, elections take too long to come around when you have a council member not performing. We have had experience with that in the near recent future where there was a council member who eventually did actually get basically expelled. And then a special election was held to fulfill the remainder of that person's term. But if you've got somebody elected to a 4-year term and in the first year or two they're not functioning the way they should, you're stuck with them for 2 more years if you have to wait for an election to put them out of office. That's not effective. And then I'm going back to something I talked about the last time. When you're looking at the city council, city attorney situation, I strongly advise you to seriously consider the option of designating the city attorney only represents the city. That the city council, with the money they will gain from having one less person on council, use that money to fund a legislative assistant. And then when necessary, use an attorney that's on retainer under contract strictly to the council itself. That separates those duties and gives objectivity where there is none now. And then lastly, as far as the Board of Water and Light and their presentations and speakers tonight go, I have to ask myself, what were they so afraid that you guys would change in the charter that they felt it necessary to have that kind of a show of persons? What were they worried you would alter? What was it so essential to them that 80 people came down here to sit here and impress you with their presence? Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have Randy Dykeheis.
All right. So I have to say, this is a very dispiriting meeting tonight. You've heard, I've been here a lot, so I understand that you can tune me out sometimes. But, I've talked with some of you individually about the importance of the internal auditor, and there was no discussion, nothing, not at all, not even one question about why you would want to remove the internal auditing function from the BW be the same person. You could even put it in the charter that BWL funds that auditor because it is an auditor just for BWL. So I found that very dispiriting. And so what happens if the GM, the general manager, and the internal auditor, who are both report to the Board of Commissioners, have a disagreement? And the general manager says, I don't want to do that. And the internal auditor says, well, you should do that. Who arbitrates that? The Board of Commissioners, right? Who are they going to side with? Dick Peffley? Or a junior staff member? They're going to side with the general manager. So there is a lot more there that I wish you guys had taken a look at. I was heartened about Commissioner, I'm going to massacre your last name, Kui's proposal to lengthen the rate setting process. I think it's a start, but it needs to be longer. You need to look at it at least 90 days, not 60 days, at least 90 days, and perhaps even longer to give the ratepayers enough time to do the investigation. I mean, when consumers and DTE have to raise their rates, it takes a year to get it through with Public Service Commission. And we ram it through in a matter of a few weeks. And you have the public hearing, and then the week later, the board votes. That's not right either. There has to be time for the board to take into consideration what is said at that public hearing, which they don't do. They absolutely do not. Because not everybody who made a comment at that hearing got a response from BWL. I know. I was there, I made a comment, no response. When I made public comment at an Eagle hearing earlier in the year, they responded to every single person, even if that person's comment did not pertain to the air permit and wasn't legally justified. They responded and said, here's why your comment was not legally justified. So at least you're looking at the rate setting process. There's a lot more you can do. Think about how can we make it more transparent? How can we make it more accountable to the ratepayers? Those are the questions I think you need to be asking yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now's the time for commissioner remarks. Not hearing any, so we're adjourned.
Does anybody care?
No.
Does anybody care that I wrote a check to the city of Lansing for $140 and put it in the Dropbox at city?
Names, and they're like, oh yeah, let me not forget this person.
Oh man, one of the most surreal moments of my life was